travel, food, and wine writer Hilarie-Larson is back on Big Blend Radio today to tell us all about her adventures in the Basque-Country of Spain. It's the first of her two-part series, and you can see her first article in the series up on blendradioandtv.com. You'll see Hilarie in our expert department. If you go click on her, you'll be able to see all her articles and interviews on that site as well. And you can also keep up with Hilarie and her blog. Just go to northwindswineconsulting.com. And she also writes in nationalparktraveling.com and in both of our magazines. So welcome back, Hilarie, Wine Queen. How are you?
I'm just wonderful, thank you. And now I want a daiquiri.
You see?
I should be thinking of the wines of Basque-Country, and you have me thinking about daiquiris now.
Listen, that was a whole other experience. They have like a little garden that you drive through. Like literally, there's palm trees and flowers, and you go in this little driveway, and then they come out and give you
a drink.
You can order like a Jack and Coke.
And a margarita.
Yeah.
You can order whatever you want.
How incredibly civilized.
I know, and it's this drive-through drink station.
But you do not put a straw in the drink.
You must keep the top on the drink, because once you put the straw in, now you are driving with an open container, which is a big no-no. So This is what you do. You go drive in, get your drinks, get a six-pack, go home and party. Then you can take your straws out.
Well, I didn't find any daiquiris on my trip to the Basque region of Spain, but I found a lot of other wonderful things.
You really did. Looking at your photos, reading your article, it just looks absolutely beautiful. And you call this the Green Spain.
Yes.
Yeah, why do you do that?
This area is called Green Spain for obvious reasons, because it gets so much rainfall. I think they get, on average, the city of Bilbao, which is the largest city in the Spanish Basque region, gets something like 172 or 180 days of rain a year. So
wow.
The mountains just sort of spring out of the ocean, of the Bay of Biscay, and they're beautiful and green. And I was there in the springtime, so they were very lush and beautiful. It was wonderful. So the wines, of course, are beautiful and fresh, just like the landscape and the influence of the sea, and the food is absolutely incredible.
Nice.
And apparently also, like if you like seafood, right? Anchovies and...
Oh, my gosh. Anchovies, sardines, cod, of course. Cod is linked to the Basque culture, as it is in other Spanish cultures, too. Hake, whaling was really big in Basque culture over a century ago. And so, yes, all the things to do with the sea are intertwined with their culture, most definitely.
And that's something I want to go into their culture, because reading your article, you talk about that this culture, the Basque culture, really goes back over 30,000 years.
Yeah, it's really incredibly fascinating, and I learned a little bit about it while I was there, and then I learned more by reading an absolutely fantastic book. It's called The Basque History of the World, and it's by author Mark Kurlansky. And he goes into all the intricacies of this incredible history and heritage, and much of their history is sort of shrouded in mystery. You know, the Basque region is not just in Spain. It also goes curves around the eastern side of the Bay of Biscay and crosses the border into the southwestern region of France. And they really don't know for sure how long the Basques or their forebears have been in the region, but they do believe it may link as far back as Cro-Magnon man, which is kind of a long period of time.
Wow, I always thought that Basque came about as intermarriage between Spanish people and French people. Is that not true?
Well, actually, they think that they may have come, well, the language at least, may have originated in Armenia. Their language is possibly the oldest living language in Europe. It has absolutely no connection to the other languages on the continent, and they now think that it could be linked to ancient Armenia, which is pretty fabulous when you think about it.
It's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. And they were there when the Romans got there in around 218, so BC. So, yeah, they've been around a long time. Or sorry, AD.
I was going to say, when you think about, when you think about Basque here in America, you find them up in Central California. You find them in Elko and Nevada, and they're often connected with sheep. And they're sheep herding. They've got Basque restaurants. It's normally very family style, everybody's sitting together at a big table, stews, but a lot of eating sheep.
Mutton,
yes, is the word. And drinking red wine, and that's kind of where I always thought it would be like very kind of connected to Portuguese culture.
Yeah, well, the Basques are great travelers, all throughout their history. They're always very happy to tell you that it wasn't really Christopher Columbus that discovered the Americas, it was the Basques, because they were chasing the schools of codfish, and they crossed the Atlantic Ocean and are given credit for discovering the Outer Banks and Nova Scotia, that area. And they also will tell you that one of their most famous people, his name's Juan Sebastian Elcano, and he was the first to circumnavigate the globe. So, they're very adventurous group of people in their history. They loved, because the Basque-Country is so small and it's so mountainous that most people either live in a few cities or they live in small villages or farms up in the mountains. And so there isn't a lot of room for them to expand. And they were persecuted for, periods of time in history. So they would go off, and a lot of them went to Mexico and South America, the Philippines, definitely North America, and I think a lot of them ended up in the sort of the California, Nevada region because they were pursuing the gold and the silver claims in the gold rush period. So, and that whole idea of the big long tables and the family-style meals and everybody sitting around and sharing and eating is totally Basque. But the food that you mentioned, the lamb and the red wine, that's going to be in the next part of my Basque adventure when I talk about Rioja Alavesa and the famous wineries there in the Tempranillo. But there's sort of three parts to where the Basque lives. There's the sea and the mountains, where you find the shepherds and the beautiful sheep and the wonderful woolens, and then you get down into the Ebro River Valley, where you get more wineries, but this time red wine and a warmer climate and lots of lamb.
Wow. Okay, so there is these connections are there, but now you said Bilbao is the main city, right?
Bilbao, yes. Bilbao is the largest city in the Basque region.
Okay, and when you were there, you went to the Guggenheim Museum. I didn't even know there was a Guggenheim there, but now
I know. It's the most incredible structure. It was designed by another famous Can-American, as I like to call myself, a Canadian-American architect, Frank Gehry. I'm very familiar name to people who love modern architecture. And he constructed this beautiful building, or designed this incredible building on the river front, the Neveron River in Bilbao. And Bilbao was known mostly, especially during the turn of the last century, as a very industrial place. There were iron mines. There were huge iron deposits in the region. So it was a big export port for iron, and there were smelters near the river, and it was not the cleanest place. And when Spain entered after they had their constitution implemented in 1978 after the end of the Franco era. They decided to clean things up and fix up the area, and in the in the 1990s they approached the Guggenheim Foundation because they had their main museum in New York, but they were looking for other locations around the world where they could expand and build new museums and install parts of their permanent collections in these museums. And that was basically the start of this wonderful rejuvenation of the riverfront from mucky, industrialized to a center for arts and progress and bringing Bilbao into the new century.
Wow. Yeah.
Nice.
So this is like, it's going through all these different changes because it's so old, these old cities, And then
extremely, yeah.
But, okay, so it's part of Spain, so when it comes to, like, federal law is Spanish law, right?
Yeah, Spain is made up of a lot of autonomous regions, like Catalonia, where Barcelona is the main city. You hear a lot in the news about them fighting for their independence. They're already an autonomous region, as is the Basque area. So they have their own parliament, their own government, their own judiciary, but they are still tied to Spain, but they do have pretty much autonomous self-government.
It's kind of like a colony.
Yeah, there's something,
I
think, like 14 or 17 autonomous regions in Spain. So it's sort of like, states have, their own laws and their own governments and state houses and so on, but they're still tied to the federal government. So it's sort of similar to that in a fashion.
Yeah, because then we have federal law and state law, and every once in a while there'll be a state law that contradicts, especially in California, contradicts some of the other laws of federal law.
Well, you got to keep things interesting, right?
I know, it's cool.
And, Ward Heinrichs, our employment attorney, California employment attorney, is based in San Diego, and he goes, well, actually, it goes San Diego law, then California law, then federal law. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, okay.
No, it's complicated, but it's fun. I like it.
Keep you on your toes.
One thing I noticed, it seems like this region, like most of the regions, are pretty walkable. This seems to be like Bilbao seems to be very walkable, right? As in other areas too.
It is. I went to the region to attend a wine tourism conference, and I went a couple of days ahead so that I could get over my jet lag and explore Bilbao. And I did it all on foot, and I love towns like that because then you really get to stop and look at things close up, and you don't just see it, you smell it and you hear it and you feel it, and I'm happy to say it was drizzly when I was there, so it lived up to its reputation, but it didn't matter. It was just beautiful, and I spent a whole day, I stayed in a really charming hotel just down from the Guggenheim, and I spent several hours at the Guggenheim, and I walked down the riverside, and then I crossed over to the other side and went all the way down. I followed the river, and it curves down to the Casco Viejo, which is the old central part of the original Bilbao, and then walked back and went to the Bilbao Fine Arts Museum. And I was gone all day and wasn't tired, and it was fabulous. And I don't know how many kilometers I walked, but I slept really well that night.
I bet. It's cool.
I've been doing a lot of that too, and I love cities that are walkable, that you can stroll, take time, soak up the atmosphere, soak up what you're looking at, be able to just feel it, saunter. You want to saunter. And the thing that's interesting too is that it seems that their food, their tapas, which I can't pronounce how they say it, but their food is set up for walkers.
Yeah, it's called pinchos. And that's fun things about the Basque language is the Basque region in their dialect is called Euskara, and the language is called Euskara. And when you look at it, it's kind of intimidating when you see it written out or you see street signs and things, because there's lots of words that have TX or TT and lots of Z's, and you go like, oh my God, how do I? And so there's a classic example. Pinchos is spelled with a TX, but that's pronounced like a ch, like a CH. Oh. So pinchos. And, they're a little bit different from tapas. When you think of tapas, they're usually small plates, and, you get a couple of them, and you and your friends sit at the table, and you share them. You share the different plates. But with pinchos, they're individual little servings, just a few bites, and they got the name pinchos because of the name of the pick or skewer that holds a lot of the original style of pinchos together onto a piece of bread or maybe a sardine and a pepper and a couple of big fat juicy olives all skewered together on a pick, and that's where they got their name. And now there's over 3,000 different types of pinchos. There's the traditional ones that's called the Gilda, which is the one I just described, named after the Rita Hayworth movie. What it has to do with Rita Hayworth, except it's curvy, I have no idea.
A couple of big olives.
Yeah, and there are all these traditional ones, and then there is also this whole group of chefs that are opening pinchos bars where everything is very modern and laid out in this beautiful, precise manner, like a nouvelle cuisine of pinchos. And they have competitions every year. And it's a big deal if you win, like Bilbao's Best Pinchos or San Sebastian's or whatever. It's a huge, huge accomplishment. But they're the kind of thing people have at, say, around 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and they just want a little something, and they'll go into one of these little bars, and they'll have a pinchos and just a small, not even like a regular-sized glass of wine, just a small pour of wine or a cider or a beer, and then off they go. It's, again, very civilized.
It's a pick-me-up.
It is a pick-me-up, most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to say the Rita Hayworth part of it.
Yeah.
The margarita legend has it that the margarita was named after Rita Hayworth.
I thought
that's because she drank a ton.
Because she used to go down there a lot, didn't she, to Baja?
Yes.
A lot of the Hollywood set did at that time.
Named after Margarita Henkel, the daughter of a German ambassador, who walked into this dude's bar.
And said, "Make me this."
1944. I just had to Google it to make sure it was like on the right path, and So she's apparently, she's a muse for food and wine, or
who would have thought, right?
I know. So this is exciting. So I like this because it's like walking food.
Yeah,
and
we like that.
You just nibble as you stroll. Mm-hmm. So while you were there, did you go into the Guggenheim?
Oh, yes, I did. I went into the Guggenheim, and I probably spent about 2.5 hours there. And I have to say, I was really surprised because I would not consider myself to be a huge fan of modern art. And that is what the dominant genre is of the permanent collection. But the first night I got there, I walked around and I looked at the building and the art installations that are outside the building, and thoroughly enjoyed that. But I thought, well, I'll go in, and they had a special exhibit, and it was Van Gogh to Picasso, and it would cover the Impressionist movement. So I thought, well, I know I'll enjoy that. So if nothing else, and I wanted to see the inside of the building because the atrium is the inside is just awe-inspiring. It's incredible. But I went through the entire museum, and it just blew my mind. It was incredible. And I came out with a completely new appreciation for modern art.
Wow. See? That's awesome. Because we box ourselves in sometimes with art and music, it's like, oh, we love this kind of music, like, I love the blues. And then sometimes someone will put on, like, something I would never think of listening to, and I might like it.
Right.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, like today, especially with very young children, or like, oh, I don't want to listen to classical. That's all fuddy-duddy. But then, as they grow up, they start finding the roots of the music they love in classical music, and eventually they start listening to it too. So it's just a matter of time before you start to open your mind to things you thought you would not like.
Modern art is...
Well, you can have a couple of margaritas and go look. Makes it easier.
Well, the Guggenheim does have two. It has a bistro and a restaurant, and they also have a little bar. I think one of the pictures that I sent to you was of a pinchos and a glass of wine, and I was sitting in their little bar area looking out over the river. See, there was my little pick-me-up before I went on my...
See, it's your pick-me-up and help you look.
I love it. So the coast, this is it. You went to the coast, and I think this is the other thing. You think about Spain, you think about the coast, and you think about food, you think about art, and the history, but this sounds really beautiful, and you said that it actually was part of the Game of Thrones, like it was part of the
cool.
Side?
Yeah, it's amazing. This area, traveling between Bilbao and San Sebastian, which is one of the other main cities of the region. The coastline is really, really rugged. And if somebody is a Game of Thrones fan, they may be familiar with a lot of scenes that were filmed in an area that was called Dragon Isle. It was where Daenerys Targaryen and the Targaryens, that was their stronghold. And it has this amazing beach and these rock formations that just shut up in these straight vertical angles, and this walkway over the sea, this little tiny trail that rises up on these rocks above the ocean that in the television show goes to their fortified castle. But in reality, what's at the end of this walkway is an old hermitage. So it's that dates back to the Jesuit period. So, but it's, yeah, it is. And so they have these huge we didn't get to see it, unfortunately, because it's a little off the beaten path. But there are quite a few places in Spain where they filmed Game of Thrones. So a lot of people go there just to see it because of that. It's called San Juan. Let's see if I can pronounce it. Gaztelugatx.
Wow.
Okay.
And if I offended any Euskara speakers out there, please forgive me.
I'm letting you do all this, man. We're here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and look, we have to say Natchitoches. It's not Natchitoches as it looks when you spell it out. It's Natchitoches, and then there's all the French. Oh, we got to tell you.
I know, we have to tell you
You're
this.
You're going to love this
so
story.
funny.
What's that?
We get into Natchitoches.
It's so funny.
Probably almost midnight. We've been on the road since 1 in the morning.
Wow.
So it's been one of those rides. We get here to our hotel, we check in, and there's what's called the French
market.
The French market here. So there's food and gas stations, and it is really good.
It's good food. It's really good.
In fact, where we're about to go this weekend has a gas station food trail.
That's how good the food is. It's so bizarre.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's really good.
Okay, so it's different. Okay. So
gas station food trails and drive-through daiquiris.
I know.
Yes, you see how we're rocking it.
However, when you go to the downtown district and you see the beautiful ironwork and the brick,
so cool.
The brick-paved streets and the views of the Cane River Lake, trust me, it is absolutely beautiful.
This is like a whole new planet here.
Yeah.
It just sounds fascinating. Oh, another place
it is.
on my
You've
list.
got to come. Yeah, please do.
Hillary,
we're saying you're the one. We're like, you got to go.
Because
Yeah, you'll get it. French, Anyway, continue on because this is funny.
And by the way, Canadians come here all the time because they're related to the founder.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Denis.
Yeah.
Saint Denis. Jean-Baptiste Denis.
Okay.
Saint Jean-Baptiste Denis.
Anyway, we go into the market because we know we can go get our little meat pies and get a po' boy because we're hungry. We go in and just, everyone's so friendly here. Everyone just talks to you. So there's a lady in there getting her food, and she starts speaking French. And she walks up to Nancy and starts speaking French. And she says, "Well, do you speak French?" And so Nancy and I, both of us, went.
So funny. Chateauneuf du Pas.
And so she turned around and she said to the girl at the cash register, she goes, "Oh, they speak that fancy French. I don't speak French like that. They speak New Orleans French." And I'm like, "What? This is the only word we know."
So funny.
We had a whole conversation about you in the gas station while we're getting food.
Oh my goodness! I hope I can show my face there all right.
So we're like,
oh well, we can. We're la-di-da. Figure that.
That is
while
classic.
You get gas station food.
I know. So there you go.
What have I done to you two?
I know.
I don't know.
It's interesting though. But anyway, let's go back to the coast area. You went to an area called Getaria?
Yes, Getaria. It's an actual little village right on the seaside, and very famous fishing village. And it's also famous for its sardines and beautiful, big, fat, juicy sardines that they pack in olive oil, and they're just so scrumptious. They're also famous for their little seaside restaurants where they grill the fish on open pits, just the way they've done for centuries. When the fishermen would come back and they get back into port and they'd be really hungry, so they grab a fish off their boat and grill it up, and they do turbot and hake and all. It's just incredible. And it's also the famous for being the birthplace of that Juan Sebastian Elcano, the global circumnavigator, and also the birthplace of the famous designer Cristobal Balenciaga. So most people think Balenciaga's French, but he's not. He was Basque. And he's buried in the village. And when you're out in the vineyards, you can see this little hillside cemetery, and that's where he's buried, looking out over the sea.
Wow.
Now, did you try the wine?
Oh, did I try the wine?
I know.
What kind of
researcher would I be if I did not try the wine?
I just had to ask.
The wine is fascinating and fabulous. Their traditional grape varieties that they grow are indigenous grapes, and they too have terrific names. There's a white variety called Handarabi Zuri. It's a red counterpart called Handarabi Belza. And then there's another red variety that they just grow in small amounts called Handarabi Zaratia. And they're all named after the town of Handarabi, which is right near the border between France and Spain. And Zuri means white, and Belza or Belts means red, so hence the little tags on the end of the Handarabi. So not that it's just fun to say the names of the grapes that they grow, but the wine that they make from them is called Chacoli or Chacolina. And Chacolina's been around for a really, really long time. There's documented evidence that goes kind of to the I think it's around 900 or 1100, 9th century. And then it was very, very popular through the Middle Ages and right through into the 1800s. And then as the region became more industrialized and people left these little villages and so on, the vineyards, between that and disease and other things, the vineyards sort of declined. And then in the 1980s, 1990s, they started to, because of this national pride and national identity of the Basques, they started reviving their vineyards and setting standards. And then when they became part of the European Union, they followed the French example, and the Spanish set up the what we call the DOs, the Denomination of Origin, Denomination of Origin, which is like the AOC in France. So it's they have 3 sanctioned regions in the Basque-Country of Spain where you can grow these grapes and make this wine called Chacoli. And Chacoli comes from a Basque word that means from home or enough for home, because that's originally what they made it. It was just what they made for their own consumption, like most countries in Europe did.
Table wine.
Yeah, and then it became very popular because it's low alcohol, it's very light and fresh and citrusy and minerally and almost like the sea. So it made a perfect match with all the seafood and fresh produce that was a mainstay of the diet in the coastal region of the Basque Country. And it's absolutely wonderful. And the 3 different regions produce slightly different styles, but the wines in Getaria have a little bit of spritz to them, not bubbles like champagne bubbles, but just a little hint of fizziness.
Cool.
Ooh. So you say that it has, in your article you talk about, it's like a taste of the sea, which is an interesting thing. You never think of that when you're wine tasting. It's like, is it like coffee? Is it like berries? Chocolate? But rarely do you hear of the sea.
Yeah, a lot of regions, we wine people, we do get a little carried away sometimes. But a lot of regions that have that, in this case, the Atlantic influence or a marine influence, can often have a kind of saline connotation to the wine. And a lot of times, because they are a cooler climate, the grapes don't get super, super ripe. So the wines are lower in alcohol and have a higher acidity level. So it makes them very refreshing and brisk on the palate. So that kind of reminds you of the sea as well. And possibly, drinking it, walking through the vineyards of a beautiful winery in the hills up above Getaria, maybe that has something to do with it too.
It's got that salt.
But I'm just.
There's a salt and a mineral thing that happens with wine. Well, if you have white wine out at the beach, you have that mineral. I don't know. I can't explain.
Well, it gets back to our word that I say every time I'm on. It's the terroir, baby.
Yeah. So how would they compare with like the wines that come from like coastal California areas?
Well, some of the coastal California regions that are a little cooler, like Mendocino and that area, up north, quite north, getting close to the Oregon border, some of them do have definitely a sort of sea spray type of connotation or influence to them.
Cool.
Now I want chocolate with sea salt.
I know. And wine, red wine.
They also have
chocolate
wonderful
with sea
salt in Basque Country as well. I didn't get to go to see the salt fields, but I did bring some home with me, and it's really, really wonderful.
Yummy.
That and olive oil are very important parts of the cuisine of the Basque Country.
Yeah, speaking of the food, San Sebastian, I'm saying that.
You are.
Here it is, the highest concentration of Michelin-starred restaurants in the world.
Wow.
It is.
How about that?
Yeah, I had no idea.
It's a beautiful city. It's another one that has these, this immensely long history. But most of the buildings, because San Sebastian is on this beautiful bay, which is now called La Concha, the seashell, because it's a big curved shape like a seashell. And that bay was a great shipping area, and so was the river that leads into it. And it was a main seaport for Navarra and some of the more inland regions near the Basque area. And so it was very coveted, and it was fought over many, many times and burned to the ground many, many times. And then in 1863, they sort of tore down the walls, most of the walls of the original walled city, and started building and expanding it. So most of the city now, when you see it, is this sort of, this turn of the century, mid to late 1800s, and then another big push around the Belle Epoque era. And it's beautiful architecture, and it's, again, another very walkable city. And fabulous food. It was the headquarters of this, what they called the New Basque cuisine, which was, a lot of people may have heard of Nouvelle cuisine in France, and Paul Bocuse and some of the famous chefs that really put ingredients first instead of a lot of heavy sauces and that kind of thing, and smaller portions of really high-end ingredients. And New Basque cuisine is similar in that way. The movement started in the mid-1970s, early 80s, and a lot of Basque chefs had gone to other parts of Europe, predominantly France, to study this type of cuisine and learn their craft. And then they came back and took that and married it to traditional Basque food think and traditional ingredients, and just created this amazing cuisine. And San Sebastian, which is called Donostia in the local dialect, it's kind of this hotbed of this Nouvelle cuisine, and also lots of pinchos bars and wonderful fish markets. And it's a kind of city that's really pretty, and the food is so good it just makes you salivate. I mean, even little corner stores that have a few fruits and veg out front are beautiful. Yeah.
And so this is still coastal, right?
Yes, it is, right on the coast. And another cool thing about San Sebastian is the river Urumeya, which runs through the city. On the west side of the estuary, you have this beautiful La Concha beach, which is supposed to be one of, if not the most beautiful public city beach in Europe. And then on the other side, on the eastern side of the estuary, you have this incredible surfer beach, and people come from all over the world to surf there.
Wow, cool.
And so you got food, and apparently this was also like la-di-da for the royals.
Oh, it was. Yeah, you've probably heard of I think I mentioned it before, the Belle Epoque, and sort of a lot of the very wealthy people at the turn of the last century. And it was made popular because I think it was King Alfonso's widow, Maria Cristina, the queen, decided to make San Sebastian her summer retreat. And so when she went there every summer, so did her court, and all the hangers-ons and everybody who wanted to be anybody would go there. And it's because of that, the architecture is beautiful, and the gardens and the buildings and the wonderful yacht club, and it's just an absolutely heavenly little spot.
Oh man, it
sounds awesome. Yeah.
I was looking at the website. It's San Sebastian Turismo.
Yeah.
.eus/en. Okay, so the best thing to do is go to blendradioandtv.com. Just type in Basque or type in Spain, and you'll find Hillary. Or you go to her expert page, and you'll find her articles there. And then from there, you'll be able to see her article, and she's got links to hotels. She's got links to other information on Basque wine, and also to the tourism board there, so you can plan your visit. Would you go back?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. There's still so much that I want to see, and now I've got my husband, the winemaker, hooked on Chacoli. I mean, it is the perfect wine for summertime, and I mean, I was drinking it in March, and it was cold when I was there, and it was fantastic. So, now he's definitely wants to come with me next time. eat pinchos and
bet.
drink chakuli and visit these beautiful wineries and go to the museums and just wander around and soak it all in, and it's just a wanderer's delight.
When someplace has such history, there's something about really, strong history, and when a place keeps its history, even if you're going to have, with this progress, there's always going to be new things in life, right? But when they hold on to their history, too, I think that's really important.
Oh, definitely. And I'll have lots of history for you in part 2 of my article.
Oh, well, we can't wait.
Cool.
It's like when you went to Catalonia, too, like the history of that, it's just, it's fascinating.
Oh, I know.
That's one of the things. Are people friendly? Do they speak English? Should people go over?
My goodness. They are the most hospitable people. I didn't have any trouble communicating. I mean, I obviously don't speak the language. If you speak Spanish, most people do speak Spanish. Actually, older people probably speak only Spanish because during the Franco regime, which went on until 1975 when he died, Francisco Franco, they only were allowed to speak Spanish. So if you speak Spanish, you'll get along just fine. If you want to pick up a few words of Euskadi and amaze people, that's fine too. And if you just speak English, I got along without any problem. And like I find in most countries, if you learn to say hello and please and thank you and a few little things, and be happy and smiling and appreciative of where you are and how lucky you are to be there, people are more than gracious. And if they speak English, they want to practice on you. So.
Awesome. Yeah, it's true. People like to know that you tried to learn the way they speak. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're always very helpful. I found it, and it's fun. It's a great conversation starter.
Exactly. Just get out and travel. It's cool.
Yeah, fun.
It certainly is.
Turn off the news and go travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's a lot more interesting
get the
and way
real
more
news.
important. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone, you can also keep up with Hillary on her website, northwindswineconsulting.com. She's got a great blog there. She's also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can keep up with her travels there. And Hillary, today, we love to play hardcore blues for you, but today we're feeling a little bit guitar-centric, Spanish guitar style. So we're going to play Sunset Steps. It's written by Domingo de Gracia, which is, now we're going towards Italy, I know, but it's okay.
It's all Europe.
Yeah. But anyway, it's the son of the famous Arizona artist Ted de Grazia, and this is on the album Please Remember Me, which features the music of Ted de Grazia. They found his manuscripts of music. When he passed away, they found his manuscripts, and they recreated his music through the Tucson Jazz Ensemble through the university, and Domingo, who is a flamenco guitarist. And so they created the album, and this is Domingo's original song, Sunset Steps. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Hillary.
Well, thank you. I had a great time talking about my adventures, and I look forward to talking to you again really soon. And safe travels. Where are you going to next?
Oh, yeah. We're going to, tomorrow we go to Sabine Parish, which we're covering the no man's land of Louisiana, which is kind of what we've been doing out here. It is this neutral strip for 3 years that there was no law and order.
It's way cool.
So it's basically America.
Sounds like your kind of place.
It's pirates.
All right. Ooh, I love it.
I know.
Yeah. And they were fighting, and the Americans took it, but nobody claimed it. So there's for 3 years, all heck broke loose, pirates, everything. So that's what we'll be doing on the Toledo Bend area, Sabine River, and that's where we're going. But next time you talk with us, you're going to be talking about Whidbey Island.
I am. Yes, kind of a bit of a departure. But, yeah, another place that I did go back because I loved it so much and
awesome.
found all kinds of wonderful new discoveries and return to some beautiful places that I'd ventured to before, and I can't wait to talk about that.
And it's about
cool.
wine, too.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, lots of wine. Yes, I went for a special wine weekend, and it was well worth the trip.
Well,
Nice.
everybody stay tuned. Hillary
Nice.
will be back with us at the end of August. And here it is, Sunset Steps. Cheers to you, Hillary.
And thanks for
Cheers.
teaching
Safe
us
travels.
French.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.